Welcome back to some more property chat, everybody. Today I'm with Nelson and Despina from House 11 Residential, property managers all around Brisbane wide. It's so awesome to have you guys on. So thanks for coming. How are you guys?
We're good.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Isa, for having us.
No worries. How's your year been? You getting through it okay?
Yes, we are. Very busy, but
very busy, yeah.
yes, we're doing well.
And for people who don't know who you guys are, give us a bit of a background around who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Despina Gomez Castro, and I'm the Client Relations Manager for House 11 Residential. And my role is to nurture the relationships with the investors and our tenants.
My name is Nelson Gomez Castro. I'm the Principal Licensee for House 11 Residential. I do end-to-end property management and make sure all the properties are well looked after.
Yeah, nice. And so who would be your typical client you would look after? Is it the investor, people who are looking to get their property managed, obviously? What's the, who's sort of your typical client you'd find?
Our clients are local, interstate and international investors, and that's who we closely work with.
Yeah, so we work with local, interstate and international investors, whether they're seasoned investors or first-time investors.
Sure, yeah.
We can assist them all. We literally assist them through the whole process of renting the property and their journey.
Now, for me, as a buyer's agent, and there's a lot of people out there as well, who everyone knows about property in Australia, right? So it's a very common thing, but I feel like there's a lot of smack talked about the property management industry in general. There's a lot of bad property managers out there, and I feel like the industry gets a pretty tough rap. What separates you guys from some of the bad rep that the industry seems to get?
So the main point of difference for us is that they do have one point of contact.
Sure.
Our communications are always open. Our clients know exactly what's happening with their investment properties, what the conditions are.
Yeah.
And for us, we communicate with the tenants as well, because for us, if the tenants are happy, then they're going to be looking after the property and our clients are happy.
Sure.
We are on top of maintenance, repairs, and any issues that may arise. We are always on top and always communicating those back to the clients.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. And even on the tenants thing, how do you make sure that you get the right tenants? Because I feel a lot of people might have had a bad experience with the tenant, or they've stuffed up their house and made heaps of errors and destroyed someone's house in some situations. What's one way you can sort of mitigate that risk, or is there always going to be? I guess there's always going to be some risk, but how do you sort of do your screening process to make sure that doesn't happen as much?
Well, what we do is we have a database that we check through for their rental history. That helps us, and when we do open for inspections, we get to speak to the potential renters, and that way we get a feel of it's the first 30 seconds basically when it comes to meeting the tenants, and their questions that they ask is also important for us, because again that gives us a feel of whether they would be a suitable tenant for the property.
Yep.
And basically we both go to the site. We have Nelson that stands out in the front, or I will stand in the front, and one stays inside. We have that conversation with the people that come through. So we go by that.
Yep. And for people, maybe, there might be some people self-managing or doing that sort of thing. What would you say is the biggest red flag you see when you're talking to a tenant, straight away? What's something that you'd look at them, talk for 30 seconds like you mentioned, and you'd be like, nope. Well,
there's been a few instances of that, and one is, I guess, where they start complaining about the property. You think, okay. They say, is this going to be fixed? Is that going to be fixed? So that gives us an indication that there may be a bit of a high maintenance tenant.
Sure, yeah.
Or even when they start requesting things from when they come to inspect the property.
True.
Can the landlord install an air conditioning? Can we change the ceiling fan?
Yeah.
That's a red flag already. You have the feeling that they're going to be high maintenance.
Sure, yeah.
So that's probably one of the red flags that we look for.
Yeah. I know people can be funny like that sometimes, right? Especially when they haven't got it yet.
Absolutely.
Because it's been pretty competitive, you'd say, in the whole rental space market, right? Even with price increases and stuff. How do you manage that? As people obviously need somewhere to live, I guess. How's that sort of process of so many people coming into the rental market?
Yeah, so basically, if we receive multiple applications, we process them all and we present them to the landlord. And it is up to the landlord or our clients to choose who is going into the property. However, we can recommend who is the best fit for the property.
Sure.
If the rental history is good, if they actually are working and can afford the property, and you know, what Despina mentioned with the database that we have access to, if they're blacklisted, then we're not going to look at them straight away. So because they've been naughty in the past. So,
got to crack down on that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very important that we choose the right tenants.
Yeah, because I feel like you hear some horror stories, which I think is why the property management industry sometimes gets a bit of a bad rep. Because it's like any industry, right? There's always a few bad eggs to sort of ruin it for the rest, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And actually back on that with the whole like self-manage, you know, some people think, oh, I'm just going to do it all myself. What would you say is the main reason that, or potentially is like the concern around managing a property yourself compared to using someone like yourselves who purely specialise in property management?
I believe the time that we put into managing the properties. If someone has the time and has the resources and tools to manage their own property, good for them.
Sure.
But they will need to keep in mind that they need to keep up to date with the legislation, make sure that they have the time to go and inspect the property, make sure they have the resources if anything breaks down, that they have the trades behind them to actually go and fix those. What else can we...
Well, we have access to databases to see, we check in on their rental history as well. If they've been blacklisted, we have access to that, where people who are self-managing, they don't have access to those programs at all.
Right, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And what would you say is the biggest thing or separating like a bad property manager from like a great property manager? Because I feel like there's a lot of people on the spectrum, but what actually separates it or makes it the difference, you think?
I think a good property manager is the one that is proactive, making sure that the property is well looked after and preventing things for becoming bigger. So for example, if you see a leaking tap, then you report that to the landlord and make sure it's fixed before it becomes a bigger problem. Communication is always a priority, and if the property owner and the property manager don't have trust, they don't fully trust each other, then that's not a good relationship.
Sure.
A bad property manager, they don't even go to the property to do routine inspections. They get the tenants to take the photos and send them to the property manager. So how can you trust someone like that?
Yeah, no.
Whether with us and at House 11 Residential, I do all the routine inspections myself. I go to the property and physically inspect those.
Yeah, because I've even heard stories of people literally just going to the front door, ticking the box and then just walking off.
Yeah,
it's
that does happen, and we've had a number of investors that have come over. They've made the switch over to us. We've connected with them. And they immediately have trust in us. They've heard about us and how we work as well. And so our reputation out there is that we have good property management. We do specialise in property management. And so that is the attraction for any investors who make a switch over to us.
And what about the difference between, like, you know, you look at a lot of the big agencies, like, you know, Ray White and all the rest of them. A lot of them do have like the department of property management. How do you feel is the difference between, say, going with a Ray White, you know, let's say you buy a house from old mate, from Ray White, and then he sort of just shuffles you into their own property management. What's the difference between, you know, just going with the stock standard of that compared to actually going out and doing it with someone like yourselves who actually specialise in property management?
I believe we do take care of our clients. We build long-term relationships. We care about the relationship. We get to know what your goals are in the property investment. Whether for some big chains like the ones you mentioned, every client is just a number. They don't really care about what the person behind the property is. They just want a lot of management. For us, it's just building on those relationships, making sure you're getting the right service, making sure your property is well looked after. And like I said before, if the owner doesn't trust the property manager 100%, then that is not a relationship to have.
Yeah, it's also because of the big chains. I mean, they do their jobs as well. However, it's just the constant changes of property managers in the team as well.
Yeah.
Where with us, you're just dealing directly to Nelson, who is also the investment property manager for the business, as well as the principal licensee. So they have that one point of contact. With the large chains, it's set up differently.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for your mum and dads maybe watching, they might be out at open homes on the weekends looking for that first investment property. They might not necessarily even be quite thinking about the property management side yet. Their concern is just to buy a property first. When would you recommend they actually get involved with the property manager? Would you say it's actually sooner than later rather than waiting until it settles and then contacting someone like you? Or when would you say is the best time to bring them into the mix, I guess? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it is very important to engage property manager as soon as possible. That way you can start building that relationship. If you have any questions or you're not sure of anything in terms of property management, those questions can be answered at earlier stage. And you start building that relationship, right? If you have a question of how much rental income is this property going to bring me, then that sort of questions you can ask the property manager.
Yeah,
so obviously, the earlier the better. And,
it's good to connect early on.
Yeah. And I think at least that way you can be a bit more unbiased with it as well, especially with your rental appraisals, because obviously the real estate agent will give you one, but we love our real estate agent friends, but a lot of the time they just might bump it up a little bit just to sort of make the property look a little bit better. Whereas, you've got someone like you guys on your side and it's actually going to be a lot more realistic.
Yes,
absolutely.
that's right.
Yeah, some people, they just bump up the price just to get the listing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, the relationship is not there. So
Exactly. And then, because I think for you guys as well, you can even assist with, identifying some opportunities to even potentially add some value, right? You might go out to a property and say, hey, look, you could maybe spend a little bit on a cosmetic renovation at the right time and it might increase your rental value by X amount.
Yep.
Do you see a bit of that as well at the moment, or are you able to help your clients that way?
yeah, absolutely. We collaborate with local property network, which we have access to multiple tradespeople, traders network, and if there is a potential for these properties to be renovated internally or do little to it, then we can advise them and give them a bold figure of what rental income they can get with the renovations.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find as well with your clients, like you get a lot of people, might have 1 or 2 property investments that you can sort of help them grow the portfolio as well? You help them manage it for 12 months and then you look at it and say, hey, look, I think it's grown by X amount. Potentially you could look at buying another one, right? And then sort of help them manage that process. Do you find there's a lot of people like that out there as well?
Yes, there are a number of investors like that we have. We have a few of those clients around us, and they are around every 12 months they will look into reinvesting.
Sure, yeah.
And so we have a few clients that have made that phone call to us saying, okay, I think it's time. I'm looking for another investment property.
Yep.
And the advice that we give them is just, if they're just starting out, not to start off big. Like, for example, not to go for, say, a 5-bedroom house that's cost them 1.4 million.
Yeah.
It's best to start small, on a smaller budget. You start with a 1-bedroom unit or 2-bedroom unit, start from there, and then you grow your portfolio.
Yeah, don't just start at the end, right? And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, even with the people that we chat to sometimes. They go out and they're like, oh, I want to buy the best looking property and I want to buy something that looks really good but potentially isn't quite actually the right investment, hey?
Yeah, they also, sometimes the investors buy on emotion and it's not the right way to go. In actual fact, it should be more of a business because these properties are giving them income to reach their goals.
Yep.
And so that's how they should look at it as well. And because we've had a couple of investors that have done it based on emotion and it's been costly for them. And yes, I think that's something that investors do need to look into and to identify what is it that they really want, what do they like to achieve with their investment property, and how to grow their portfolio from there.
Yeah, because we see so much of that, hey, even with what we do. It's like people, they have an idea in their head of what they want, but they forget that they don't actually have to live there as well, right?
That's right.
And it's like, well, you don't have to live here, and maybe it's not the best looking property, but at the end of the day, sometimes those are actually the best ones, because then you can add a bit of value to it, or you can do a small renovation and increase your rental amount. And
It could be in the right location. It's near schools if that's what they're wanting, or it's near the shops. It's just pretty much in the location that they will get the decent rental income as well. So that's important to look at instead of buying a 5-bedroom house again. Somewhere that's further out, there's not much around it. They're not going to get anything out of that. So it's really important that they think hard and think twice about their purchase as well.
And it's always logic over emotion, right? Looking at those different things, like you're saying, like even some of the rental vacancies and some of the returns that it's giving, and even looking at some of the capital growth over the last few years, whatever it might be, just to make sure the numbers actually stack up. Because we've had clients before, I found this unit in Fortitude Valley and it looks really good and it rents for a decent amount. But it's like, you look at the sales in the last 5 years, and for one, there's probably 100 of these things selling at the moment.
That's right.
There's too much supply. And then two, because there's oversupply, they just haven't been growing. It's like, sure, you put $50 in your pocket each week, but over the long term, it's actually not going to do much for you.
Absolutely. So in reality, they just need to look at these investment properties as a business, because that business is going to help them reach their financial goal at the end of the day, whatever financial goal there is, of retirement early or for the kids, or whatever the financial goal is. They need to look at it as a business purely and not emotionally.
100% can agree more. And you sort of mentioned a couple of things there, like being close to schools. What are a couple of those things that you'd say to people that they should be looking out for when it comes to purchasing an investment? Or even some things to avoid?
They should look at it like without having the emotional attachment to it, but ask themselves that question, would they rent this property themselves? I think that's really important to look into. And whether it is close to public transport, the schools, to your cafes and restaurants, anything that's important to people to have in close proximity. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and I think you need to have a strategy in place, whether you want to invest in a suburb that is more family orientated, or you want to invest in the city where it's more of a professional people living in there. So you need to have a strategy in place of where you want to invest.
A few different factors there to look at. It's always like you're saying, right? It's like, would I live there? Some of the best suburbs are always the ones that have high owner-occupier rates compared to the tenancy rates, because it generally shows a lot of the demographic of the suburb and those different things. What would you say is like one of the biggest mistakes you see people make when it comes to buying an investment property?
One is that they don't insure. They don't have landlord insurance. They refuse to get it. They think that nothing's going to go wrong with their property, which is... That is wrong. That is false. Things can go wrong. It's just, it is what it is, and it does happen. And then sometimes what happens is that they don't insure it, and then something does happen to the property, and they don't have insurance to cover it, and then they're in a world of hurt. The other thing is that they, like I mentioned before, they start big, and like I said, that it's just best if they start small with their investment property purchases and then grow from there. And that's been the mistakes that I've noticed that investors have made, and also they have been emotional about their purchase. That's another. Is there anything else you think that purchases?
I think another mistake they make is when it comes to the management fees for any agencies. They tend to go for a smaller commission fee, which is not always a good thing, because they don't get the service that they deserve. So there are companies out there offering 4.4%, 5.5%, but at the end of the day, you're not going to get the service that and your property deserve. So looking at management fees as well is one of the mistakes that they make as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pay for what you get sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And people don't realize these fees are tax deductible as well. So
Yeah.
there's no brainer to, I mean, you have a big asset and you want that asset to be well looked after. So in my opinion, if you're going to invest in property, you need to invest in a good property manager. That will be the best investment you make. Invest in a good property manager to look after your investment property.
Yeah,
So we do
100%.
all the work and
Yeah.
they chill.
Yeah. We buy it well, manage it well, and guess what?
That's it.
Then you'll be able to buy another one in no time, right?
Exactly.
100%. Is there anything else you guys want to add, or any piece of advice you give people who are potentially looking to get into the investment game at the moment?
Do your research. Make sure you connect with a good property manager. Make sure you build that relationship with your property manager. And if you need any advice, if you want anything to do with property investment, please contact us. We will be more than happy to help you in your journey.
Awesome. How good. Well, you heard it here first. House 11 Residential Property Management. If you want to get in touch, I'll link them down below, and feel free to get in touch with them at any time. And yeah, thanks for coming on. So thanks guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Isaac.
Isaac.